What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒 Not Included. I've cleared out a lot of space, but we do need to clear out a lot more. But to be honest, we need to get rid of this as well. We will shortly, using the thermostatic generators, hopefully. I am going to wait until we've got atmo suits before I actually start ripping out the rest of the asteroid, so that we've got a sealed base, and then everybody's safe when they're going out there. Because there's so far to war, they won't last very long holding their breath, so it won't be a very good option. That has at least settled down now. It was magma when we started. It's slowly cooling down over time, but it's still far too hot to get anywhere near. Farms are going okay at the minute, though there is some severe issues coming up with the farms that I never thought of. But we'll get to that, don't worry. So trying out the theory of the thermostatic generator, I'm going to start putting them down around where I want to start to see things to cool down. Now, you don't have to make them work, you don't have to actually use up the energy, which is a bonus. So if you want to just use them for cooling, you can. Obviously, it's a waste because for whatever cooling they do, of course, they would generate electricity, and that electricity will be wasted if you don't hook it up. But you can do that. All you need to do is put a cable on the generator, any cable at all, and it will start to work. And then it will work up until the point that it gets too cold, where it will stop until it warms back up again. But other than that, it will continue to work. Now, I am going to try and wire all of them in, because for all of the heat that I need to get rid of, especially if it's something where it's going to be more permanent, I want that free energy. We're not doing too bad with coal and algae yet because of the processes we're using, and because we're only using the algae to do the small part of the base and not everything around it. Obviously, all the places where the critters are, the farms and the power plant, etc., they are all well, whatever's in there, to be honest. I think most of them are carbon dioxide, but some of them might be something different, like chlorine or hydrogen. Just using the move tool to move a few of these things around to make life easier for me. Make sure to survey first before moving, and you should be good to go. Also, I'm just checking that any of these things have the inspect button, because using the inspect button gives you the data disks, which is the research, the fourth level of research. So we need quite a lot of them, actually. I think you use sort of 10 per research, and you probably need to do 2 or 3. So you probably need sort of 20 to 50 per research. So it's quite expensive. And you don't get that many on the map, on your original asteroid map. So you will need to travel to get to that late game research if you want to. Well, if you want to, anyway. Bit of a bug there. A restart will get rid of that. Don't panic. As an example, we can go into the thermal view now and see that working, and you can clearly see the evidence that that is indeed ripping out the heat from the air and transferring that to energy very quickly and efficiently in its radius. Now, to spread it out, obviously building more will help, but you really do need to try and use some of the temp shift plates as well to help get that cooler air to spread out. What will happen is the cooler air will spread out, meaning that the warmer air will also push back in, and you should start to see that you can do a much larger area. I found, though, if I just chuck loads of temp shift plates down, like, I don't know, surround the background, that doesn't work as well, because it's almost as if the sides are what actually work best, and they need to be on the edges. So I'm going to bust open this now to allow this water to fall out and down into the area where I'm hoping to put quite a bit of water. I'm not really bothered about what type. At the minute, this is just clean water from the steam vent. Now, it is too warm, technically, to use in the base, because it would just make the base too warm. But, of course, we have ways of cooling it down that I'm going to work on. Now, the other reason I want to get this out as well is so we can get to the geyser, survey it, and then we can move it. And the idea is all of the geysers I'd like to put into one big room that's insulated, and then the resources which they produce, which are infinite, we can then use them for the base. Now this will give us water. Of course the water will be too warm, so I might use it for the water from this for, what's it called, electrolysis. So the oxygen will be warm, but if I'm using it for filling up atmo suits, it's not the end of the world. Bit of polluted water there as well. We will need to get that in, all mixed in. I'll get a sort of system set up to filter it all out. We are going to, of course, have the same for the gases as well. And what I'm actually going to do in this series, hopefully pretty soon in my terminology anyway, is do like a super storage system. So I want like a room that's got all those chests in it and everything is stored in there, and then using the sweepers and the belt loaders, etc., for the shipping side, as long as we've got enough resources to build all that stuff, we'll then automate a lot of that as well. So giving the duplicants less and less to do over time. Predominantly the main goal for them at the minute really, well at the minute it's digging and building ladders, of course, or scaffolding as I'm going to call it, because they're not going to stay there. They're just to get to these areas, dig out huge gaps, and then we can get that gas sorted out. We don't want necessarily a vacuum around the base, but I will accept sort of micrograms of gases around the base. Well, that's cleared out, so that's another step forward. I mean, I don't know if your ways of doing it are different to mine. A lot of YouTubers I've watched do the same, and it makes the most sense because for the area that you don't need, it's fine. You can leave it, but remember that pretty much everything that you have and you are looking at, and also digging out, is a resource. That resource can eventually be turned into something that you do actually want. Even things like slime can be used to accelerate into mud and something else. You can also feed it to certain critters, like the poke shells, but the water versions, and secrete out other items. And it's just beneficial to make sure that you have what you need. The aim of the game really is to get to the Temporal Rift, I think it's called. Yeah. Anyway, you need the resources to build all that stuff, and to get resources you basically need to dig out and devour or destroy the asteroids. So we get a base built up. With that base I'll have an air gap, which is the first time doing it, but we've got air gaps on the left and right. The left side being our farms, the right side being our, I'm not sure what I'm going to say industry, but power. And then everything else can be air gapped. Right, so back down here, what can we do? I don't know if this is going to work. This is a bit of science that we're doing ourselves. I've put a few up there as well where there was a pile of warm materials they're working. And over here where this huge area was full of one of the warmer biomes, I've ripped it out. The heat now is in the liquid and it'll just slowly cooling the liquid down. Now it is cooling the liquid down slowly, but you can see it going down like 0.1 every 4 or 5 seconds. So it is working. I'm not sure yet that they're going to be good enough to put with volcanoes and magma and doing that sort of stuff. Just because they do get hot and melt. Now the best material I have is steel, but that's not anywhere near enough. But we will find out here. So once we've built this and moved that insulation on the right that I'm about to do now, there is then the abyssalite, which of course is a much better insulator than the actual insulation, but we can't build that. We then need to break into here. We need to then get the air gaps, you can see, are vacuum. As soon as a gas is allowed in there, the heat will start to transfer. Now that, what looks like igneous rock that's slightly liquid, I think that is what it means. It is close to being a liquid, but it's not quite, because if it was a liquid, it would be magma, of course. But it is 1300 degrees. That's dangerous hot. Far too hot for the plan. However, I am not going to put the machine directly on it. So there you can see the heat is then coming out on the gases that are making their way in there. The gases then flow towards the machine, and the machine absorbs that heat and turns it into power, cooling it down. Now, I may need more than one, but it is so far working. That red you can see that is coming off the items, of course, is transferring through the gas. Really, we should just fill the room with hydrogen to get a better example, but I think actually hydrogen is too good. It will transfer the heat too fast, and the generator would just melt. So you can see the generator is yellow now. Putting down them temp shift plates is helping bring that heat over ever so slightly. We don't want it to make its way past the machine that went out the gap and be released. We want to turn all of this heat into power, and eventually we will be able to move this. This will not be a quick process. I'm under no... no, I don't even know what the word is, but you know what I mean. I'm not expecting this to be quick. I never was. That is really dark red. That's terrifying. But as long as the generator doesn't get too hot, it will continue to cool down that. Now, I'm sure there are better ways of doing this. Just chucking water in there would instantly make a load of crap ton of steam. And then the steam would cool it down much quicker. But then you'd have a lot of steam to deal with. And at the minute, we don't need steam for anything because I'm not using steam. There is a steam generator, and there are also steam rockets. But we're not there yet. So creating a load of steam for the sake of it just seems a waste at this time. We can now just leave this alone for a little bit to see what happens. It will reach a sort of middle ground, a medium, where hopefully it works in our favour that it is slowly cooling it down. And the heat isn't escaping into or out of the base without being cooled down, but we'll have to wait and see. So up in this left corner, obviously that geyser is in the way, but we're going to look at moving that soon. But I still want to build the rest of the base in. Now, there are buildings that I haven't built yet that I want to or need to. One of them is a hospital. Now, a standard hospital where people can recover faster is step one. Step two is the hospital with the med bays. That is where they use the vials to basically cure anything, including the zombie spores. And then there's a massage room as well for anybody that gets stressed or just wants to chill. Now, that's working so far. They're running, and again, that's all free energy, so why not? I don't see a problem with it at the minute, though the downside for those of you that are playing is that, of course, this is a modded generator, so it's not in the vanilla game. But I've often used these and put them along, and I'm sure you saw it in the last series, actually. I dig down to like where the magma is and then transfer that heat gently from the magma into hydrogen, fill up a room, and then these take the heat out. It was complicated to get it working, and by complicated I mean there's a fine line where you have to use coolant to help keep the gases from getting too hot. And what I was actually using was the ethanol that was like negative, I think it started off negative 20, but it ended up being negative 2. And that was we was using that to help cool the room down, because these generators, if they get too hot, they break down and melt, and then everything goes really wrong. What I'm doing, there was some heat escaping to the left hand side there, so I'm chucking another one down that will hopefully catch that. If it does, we can put more temp shift plates in to try and bring that temperature out. That's what I want to see. So now looking to the left-hand side of them generators, the air is much cooler than the air that is out in that open space. So we're not making it warmer, we're making it cooler. Very promising. Now we have a food problem where the critters specifically the 𝐑𝐄𝐋𝐂s don't eat from them food boxes. They do not. And that's a massive problem. Because the rooms, the farms are too warm to grow the mealwood. So the solution is to grow another crop. They eat 3. Bristleberry is the second crop, but that has the same temperature regulations as the mealwood, and actually worse, they need lights, which make the room warmer, so the problem will be even worse. And then there's pincho berries, which are the ones that grow upside down from the ceiling. You often see them in chlorine environments. They like the temperature to be 35 to 80 or 85, which are perfect for not getting too hot. Now, spoiler, if you're following along, don't do that. You might see me do it, but it doesn't actually make the 𝐑𝐄𝐋𝐂s lay the drossy, bloody hell, words, the glossy 𝐑𝐄𝐋𝐂 eggs. The only way to get the glossy 𝐑𝐄𝐋𝐂 eggs is for them to eat mealwood. So don't rip up your farms thinking you've solved the problem like I did, only to find out that you're left with standard 𝐑𝐄𝐋𝐂s, because glossy 𝐑𝐄𝐋𝐂s only come from mealwood. And into another science experiment. Is one generator enough to cool down 1 or 2 of the refineries? I'm not using the rock crusher anymore because it's not efficient enough and it's not fast enough. So what I'm going to try and do is put a coolant loop in, as always, using water because it's all I've got at the minute. There are better options, of course, but water's the easiest. And then this thing will be cooling the air around. It won't cool the water down or the liquid down unless you put the radiant pipes around it, but it will keep the room temperature down, is my hope. And then maybe I can build a couple more of these generators, wrap a load of resonant pipes around them, and that will cool the liquid down so it goes back in cooler than when it came out. We'll see. Okay, so with those built and the rock crushers built for the lime, crushing the lime, etc., it's definitely making a difference with the temperatures. We know that, but they're not running. The refineries, I mean, aren't running. So as of yet, we don't know if it's working. Putting down the sweepers, because the sweepers will, of course, put the resources into the crushers and the refineries for us. The refineries and crushers, because of the modded ones, are the automatic ones. So you don't need somebody stood there smacking the button. If you put the resources in, they automatically go. So basically it means that with a sweeper, you can automate the whole process. They then drop the resource, i.e. the refined metal, and then the sweeper can put that into a belt loader, which I'm putting in now, and send that elsewhere. So the whole process is pretty much automated. Of course, the temperature thing is the problem here, and that the automation won't help with. In fact, the automation will make it worse because the machines will never switch off, whereas at least they used to get a break. I can put a thermometer in and restrict it that way, which I've done in the past, and I may do that if it gets a little bit out of hand. What I just need now is a number. How many of these generators does it take to absorb the heat produced for producing one batch of iron, copper, gold? Not steel yet, because steel is a whole nother kettle of fish. Steel produces much more heat than the other ores. So there's 2 different experiments we need to do there. Okay, so we should start to see now the refineries kick in. They have the resources, they have the coolant coming down, just stealing it from the water line. Basically the idea is that once we've got them full of water, it will just use the same water round and round and round, so it won't be wasting it, unless of course it gets too hot and bursts a pipe with steam. Then we will be wasting it. So coming in, we can see that the one on the left is doing the normal stuff, i.e. the iron, the normal ores, straight to refined, and then the one on the right is supposed to be specifically for steel only, I think. Now what I could do with, to actually give you an idea of what I'm seeing, is looking at the temperature gauge, because that's the important factor here. Unless we see other things obviously just blowing out the top. immediately, then we know we've got a problem. Looks like we are full on liquids, so I need to stop that coming in now and allow the export part to link into that strip, and then we can basically just have a circle. Okay, that's done. So the one on the right is running. Now the question is, when it outputs the liquid that we're going to see shortly, what temperature is it? There it is. It will obviously go straight back in. Now, I'm not convinced that this is going to work because we need radiant pipes in this plan. I know I need radiant pipes in it, but apparently I didn't know it at the time. I was hoping that keeping the machine cooling off, I think, would work, but it's not going to. Because the liquid coming out is at 60 degrees, so it's raised it by about 30 degrees. So that means without cooling it down, it will then come out at 90 the next time. And then the following time after that, it will be over 100 and therefore steam, so the pipe will explode. This is clogged up because there's no gap to allow for the transfer of the waters. I mean, it's running. We'll see how long it lasts for before it goes tits up, as they say. And that answers that. So I have jumped ahead because I did a lot of science, and if you want to see stuff like that, please do let me know in the comments so I can leave it in. But the idea is that people want to watch the game, not do the science themselves, but I can obviously put them full-length videos out if you like. But you can see there is actually 7 generators now and lots of radiant pipe to keep one of these refineries cooled. This is not producing steel. This is everything but steel. But so far, the liquid is coming out at around 60 to 70 degrees. And by the time it gets past those 6 generators and all that radiant pipe, it comes back into the machine at about 20 to 30. So it does off all of the heat it's generated. You can see it up there. That's where all the heat is. And that heat is there because it's not in the liquid anymore, which is the process, right? To transfer thermodynamics, etc., etc. You know this. We know this is what this game is about. Also, if you look, there is 7. 7 times 256 is a lot. And the great thing is that number is higher than the actual number required to run the refinery. So we are running the refinery for free based on the heat that it's producing. So the heat it produces from electricity, we turn into electricity again. But more electricity. So there might be a game breaker here. I'm not sure that it's that quite efficient. But what I'm seeing is we're using 1200 energy, 1200 electricity to basically produce around 1700 or so and run the thing. So we're gaining 500 electricity from that. And there's no loss because the thermostatic generators, they don't use a resource. They don't use fuel. Don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We may have broke something. Let me know in the comments if you know. This seems to be working, though I need a third one for sure. We are over time now, though, so I am going to end the episode here. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, please click like. Any comments are welcome. As always, subscribe for more. Take care. Goodbye.